Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
So our next speaker is Jenetta Barry. And Jenetta is an international online consultant, also based in Harley Street, London. As a crisis expert who came to terms with a personal tragedy, the suicide of a 16-year-old daughter, Jenetta discovered a remarkable source of emotional resilience and a process for imparting it to others, which is presented as the epiphany process. Jenetta is sought as a transformational influence to troubled suicidal teens, as to go to counselors for people in crisis, including being flown in to assist terrorist attack victims. She is an author of Full Circle Rainbow, an account of her interactions with her daughter and her daughter's story. Thank you so much, Jenetta Barry. And your topic for today is the law of conservation of energy and spirituality. Over to you, Jenetta.
So welcome and best wishes, Jenetta. Kindly unmute yourself, please.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be with you all today. And to say to you, I present this speech a lot from the I in the spirit of compassion, because when it's sent out there saying, this is what I've experienced, it allows those who are feeling at sea and lost to identify and feel that compassion. So much of what I talk about is in the I, coming from the heart. And I only heard a little bit of what Gaston spoke about just now, and I can hear that so much of what he does is what I do as well. Because we live in a world of, really in the Western world, where we're very addicted to being positive. It's actually become an addiction. And all parts of us that are the negative side of who we are judged. But if you look at a cycle requires for it to be empowered equal amount of positive and negative charge in it. If you take negativity out of the electricity I'm enjoying using now very powerfully, it's disempowered. So when we take out the negative side of who we are, we lose our power. We judge it. And it means basically we're judging half of who we are. So in the process of learning how to embrace and love that negative side and not be attached more to the positive in this world of duality is where I very preciously and lovingly share my story with you now. From a very young age, my earliest recall, from about 3 or 4, I realized I was deeply sensitive to what other people were thinking and feeling. And I could sense their fears and read what they were thinking. And as I read them, they often would verbally say what I'd just read. I mean, a lot of us here have experienced that. And to me, that was life. And I presumed that everybody else was experiencing and able to do the same, that they understood my actions and my reactions to happenings in other people. And the problem was that when I found they didn't, it left me feeling different. And in turn, I often felt as in my life, it was about forging on my own with everything. I was an island. And this left me without practical communication tools and skills on a day-to-day human level. It became my label, the way I am, and left me feeling unable to express myself clearly, especially by way of example in times of challenge or at other times in being able to define my boundaries. So it's not surprising, really, that as an adult in my search for that which puzzled me about myself, I became a motivational speaker. I was fairly good at it. And then I noticed that people came back after a couple of days, a week, a month, literally saying, we need another dose of Jenetta, or we need another Jenetta fix. And I realized that I had become their drug to artificially uplift themselves with my energy. And I felt out of integrity. And it was then that I took the decision to take myself away from the corporate life and to further develop and strengthen my spiritual gifts and abilities. And for several years, I sat within a meaningful and loving circle, filled with people who saw the humor as much as the value in what we were creating each time we met to psychically expand. I also very successfully held deep meditation and intuitive courses and classes and watched many people grow and flourish. And yet there was a two-pronged downside to this that eventually left me yet again questioning. The first was that I noticed that people were coming to me for guidance using my intuition rather than truly learning how to trust theirs. And I again felt out of integrity. And the other challenge that came to light was that I had presumed during this spiritual workshop style of my life that in more powerfully communicating on spiritual levels, that this would provide my family, especially my children, with a surefire way and to have choices on how to trust themselves and life in general from a deep knowing. And it was at this time that I was questioning all this that my greatest life test happened. One day, after having had an enormous argument with my 16-year-old daughter, Jenny, she took herself off to her room to pack and leave home. And I sensed something was wrong, and I went to find her. And I found her hanging in her shower with a broken neck. And you can imagine the devastation that this brought to us as a family and to me as a mother. After all, it was after she and I had argued. And over the following months, I battled to gain equilibrium as it understandably shook the very roots of my faith and trust. Even though I tried to pick up the pieces and live a normal life, carry on with my workshops, I was a rudderless boat. And even so, it was at this time that I used my spiritual knowledge and my writings to assist me, and which eventually led me to publish my book, Full Circle Rainbow. And the book began to chronicle what happened to Jen and to me after she died. I mean, after all, science talks about the first law of thermodynamics, states that energy is always conserved, so it cannot be created or destroyed. And of course, my daughter was energy in her original form. So if her energy hadn't been destroyed, but reformed into a new version of the same energy, then where was my daughter? And so Full Circle Rainbow was able to start chronicling where she was present in many, many forms. Some of them really subtle, others really blatant. But always in a simplistic way. Jenny always showed herself in a simplistic way. And the books assisted thousands of people worldwide to learn how to do that subtlety and more easily fine-tune their ability to sense and communicate with their departed loved ones. In a sense, it's a spiritual handbook for beginners who've lost loved ones. And I find that very inspiring because there are so many people there who don't even know how to start. And yet, having completed this, there was still a deep sense of missing, an inability to truly move through the loss, through the overwhelming thoughts and emotions, an inability to communicate to the rest of the world. And I was left having to deal with feeling hugely isolated and alone, like I'd slipped into a deep, dark hole, trapped, serving a lifelong emotional prison sentence. So it was from these writings that pushed me into further questioning my life from not just a spiritual viewpoint, but to turn to looking more and more at my life and my deep loss from a scientific stance as well. For me, there'd always seemed to be a big divide. Science always questioning us in spirituality, and we in spirituality often feeling judged. And prophetically, 9 months after Jen died, I came across the basics of an approach I subsequently have researched, and expanded and taught internationally, online, worldwide. By the way, I say to people, welcome to my world. I've been working on the ether level of cyber for a long time now. And with this, I was able to work my loss through by further researching, expanding, and fine-honing these basics. It wasn't easy. I knew for me to get through this tragic loss, I'd need to walk the walk, talk the talk with my newfound tools. And I describe this approach as being the yin and yang of science. That which I explained very briefly at the beginning. I began to learn more accurately to express myself, communicating with more certainty, specificity, and clarity. And the fact that my spirituality had led me to move into researching scientifically left me with the knowledge that I had finally found the missing puzzle I'd been searching for all my life. The most precious part of this journey has been that these questions have helped so many people, from self-harming teenagers through to couples who just couldn't communicate, whether they stay apart or part, being able to have powerful, deep, authentic, meaningful conversations, not from fear or judgment. But here's what I haven't told you. There were many occasions, especially during the course of being a spiritual guru, that my daughter Jen's ability to cope with life's challenges appeared to seriously decline. And during this time, at the age of 14, she came to me and said, I have to tell you that I'm depressed. In fact, Mum, I'm not just depressed, I want to kill myself. And I said, really? But you've always got a smile on your dial. I mean, I know you've battled with things, but most of the time you've managed to get through. And I've given her so much spiritually as well to help her, the meditation, all the ins and outs. We talked often about it. And she said, but no, Mum, I haven't. In fact, I've really felt I never belonged to this family. And at the age of 7, I tried to strangle myself in front of the mirror, because I just felt I didn't belong. And the journey that followed was even more devastating, because she was put in and out of rehab, tried so many times to commit suicide, and even came out of the most successful saying, I'm still feeling suicidal. And over the 2 years that followed, there were times where I wondered how I could possibly go on dealing with and understanding what she was feeling. And on one of many occasions where I tried to talk through how she was feeling with her, she explained to me what she was feeling. And I said, but Jen, that's how everybody feels. We all go through these challenges. We all feel overwhelmed, judged, and so on. And we have ways of being able to move forward and get on with life. And she replied, but Mum, I'm not everybody. Nothing relates to me and with me. And in hindsight, I realized that she was dealing with the same lack of communication skills I'd experienced, but that her overwhelm volume dial was turned up to far greater levels. And in that time, she attempted to take her life 3 times. And it felt that as if in relying so much on faith and trust, that I lacked the ability to apply for myself and impart very real practical communication and empathy skills that were needed in her everyday 3-dimensional living. Skills to understand the value of cycles, as I mentioned at the beginning. Skills to balance positive and negative fears and judgments about ourselves. That our negative thoughts, words, and deeds are as loved and lovable as our positive ones. Skills outside and in addition to meditation to center, balance, and manage this controlling thought and emotion extreme, which in turn compromises our ability to spontaneously reason with empathy from deep within our unconscious consciousness. And instead of excessive feelings and thinking controlling us, to have the tools to instantly bring these into balance during the course of a conversation, so that as we speak, we are able to open-heartedly manage these thoughts and emotions. I find myself expanding this and realize that I am meditating in every second, in every moment with this process, and it's very enlightening. It's why it's called the epiphany process, and it's pure science in some ways. And I realize that it's about giving and receiving from a place of open-hearted appreciation without judgment and fear. That it is about taking from others, and it is about imparting. It is about the I. It is about what can I get, and it is about what can I get back, because that's the balance. So a most precious first step would be look at where we're addicted to being a positive, and then looking at the negative side of what is happening simultaneously and synchronistically. Yelis was talking about the synchronistic side. And to begin understanding how much love, opportunity, and unity there is in what is happening on a negative level. It's often appeared that there's been a great divide between those who understand the language of spirituality and those who talk science speak. That gap has closed some more over the past 50 to 100 years. But for me, the loss of my daughter transforming into new energy took me on a painfully inspiring journey of understanding that both spirituality and science are talking about the same things. They just use different language styles to express it. And with now being able to utilize these two languages, I find that as I am talking science speak, I'm sounding like I'm aligning with the Tao, or stepping into the true sense of the light of Christ consciousness. And yet I'm still talking in scientific terms. That's very inspiring. And that the two languages often meet, recognize, and complement each other. And through the language of science speak, I've been able to physically and practically find how to take my excessive overthinking and overfeeling, and through practical human skills and techniques to depolarize them to a place where they were excessively polarizing from each other, and bring my partial perceptions into manageability so that my positive and negative charges about someone or something are spontaneously, on a conscious and an unconscious level, brought into appreciation, brings in clarity, certainty, and specificity, and only seeing half of the positive or half of the negative is half the reality. This brings one into actuality. And I've understood that it's in my greatest loss and life test that I've learned to communicate and express myself from a place of open-hearted appreciation, that there is more than just science and there is more than just spirituality. It is the sum of the whole. Through my deepest loss, I was able to understand that in Jenny shifting into a new version of herself, one without the three-dimensional heaviness of expression, through words feeling very heavy, she has given the greatest gift of all. She's led me and others in assisting people to express themselves in new, authentic, heart-opening ways with a new lightness of being on a new level of consciousness. Thank you.
Thank you.